This little gadget that I carry in my pocket and that a great number of you carry in your pockets or somewhere else, this thing has changed our lives. It's changed my life. It's very different when you walk around with a smartphone, because it's more than a phone, of course. We can look and check our email and make movie reservations and look at our checking account, and I can play Billy Joel or the Beatles. It's a camera. It's a better camera than I had before I had this, and a dozen other things. It's just kind of an amazing, life-changing thing that we now carry around. And sometimes the thing on this that I'm most grateful for is maybe not one of the most famous parts. It's this. Because now I am never without a flashlight. I always have a flashlight with me now. And that was not true 20 years ago or so, when I was the co-dean of a youth camp down at our Methodist camp called Lake Texoma. Nobody had one of these back 20 plus years ago. My friend Larry Varvel was a pastor. He and I were the deans, and we were called upon late one night at the camp to go kill a snake in the girls' cabin, which was not something we were taught in seminary about how to dispatch reptiles. And the only weapons we could find were a broom and a golf club. And so Robert and I had a broom and a golf club, and we went into the girls' cabin to find the snake. And somehow, and maybe by dumb luck, we were able to get the snake out of the girls' cabin, and they could stop screaming, and they could go back to bed. And this was late, though. This was after lights out. And it was time for me to head back to the dean's cabin. The problem was, when I say lights out, I mean lights out. I mean, there were no lights in that campground. There were no lights. And I didn't have one of these, and I hadn't brought a real flashlight with me, and the territory between cabins was full of trees and branches and ruts and potentially more snakes and whatever else. And I had no light. And I never walked so slow in my life. I was like, okay, and I mean, it took me to go 70 yards, it took me 20 minutes to go 70 yards. Because I was so fearful of stepping in a hole or some critter or having a branch hit me in the face, I walked very slow. Because when you're walking in the dark, every step brings fear and uncertainty and danger. When you're walking in the dark, it's not fun. Now, Graham read for us the words of the prophet Isaiah earlier, prophesying the coming of Messiah, the anointed one, when he said, "The people walking in darkness will see a great light." The people who walk in darkness will see a great light. Now, first century Palestine, the setting of the Christmas story, first century Palestine was often a dark place, and not just because they lacked electricity or cell phones. It was a dark place, a darkness of the soul and the spirit. The Jewish people living in Israel, in Judea, were living under the thumb of an oppressor, Imperial Rome. But they had been living, the Jewish people had been living under the thumb of one empire or another for centuries. The Babylonians, then the Persians, then the Greeks, now the Romans. It was one empire after another, one conqueror after another. And the glory days of Israel, the days of David and Solomon, were long, long past. David was 1,000 years in the past by the time of Jesus. The prophets had said that someday a descendant of the great King David would come. They called him the Anointed One, the Mashiach, the Messiah. And that Anointed One, that son of David, that descendant of David would sit on an eternal throne. That was the prophecy that they clung to. But there had not been a prophet in Israel since Malachi 400 years before. And the people were walking in darkness. And almost no one knew that on a night Palestine, the light was about to come. The light was about to come. It started with an old couple named Zachariah and his wife Elizabeth, an old priest and his wife, well past childbearing years, who had a baby. And an angel told Zachariah that this child, he was to name him John, and that he would walk in the footsteps of Elijah and would be one who would prepare the way of the Lord. Elizabeth's teenage cousin Mary had a visit from the angel Gabriel, who told her that she would bear the long-awaited Messiah. She would bear the Son of God. She told her fiancé Joseph this, and he at first, of course, didn't believe her. But an angel confirmed to Joseph that every word was true, and that he was to be the protector and father to this child, and that they were to name him Jesus, a name in Hebrew, Yeshua, that means God's salvation. Now, because of the Roman Empire's decision to continually tax the people that they had conquered, they pronounced a sentence to be held throughout the empire, and they said that every man should return to his hometown to register for this census, this tax census. And since Joseph was of the line of the great King David, they had to go to the home of King David, which was a little town called Bethlehem, a suburb of Jerusalem. And as we know, while they were there, Mary went into labor and delivered her child in a barn. The light was born that night. The light came into the world that night, but almost no one knew it. Almost no one knew that the light had finally come. God didn't announce this birth to priests or kings or the powerful. He sent a host of angels to announce it to the very lowest of society, a bunch of shepherds who were often outcasts. He put a star up in the heavens to signal the birth, but only a few astronomers in Persia could read the signs and made their way to visit the child and bring him gifts. The light came into the world that night. The light was born that night, but almost no one knew about it. It was simply the birth of one more peasant child. But 30 years or so later, people began to notice this child, who was now a man. But this child grew to be a man who began to travel from town to town, preaching and teaching in synagogues and on hillsides. He gathered a dozen devoted followers. He started to do things that no teacher had ever done before. He healed the blind and the deaf and the lame and the leper. He spoke out against the hypocrisy of the religious leadership. He started to gain thousands of admirers who began to speculate, could this be the Messiah? He gained thousands of admirers and some very powerful enemies. John says this about him in his gospel, about Jesus. John says the true light that gives light to everyone was coming into the world. He was in the world. And though the world was made through him, the world didn't recognize him. The world didn't recognize who Jesus was. Only a handful. Even the disciples were slow to come to understand who he was. But his enemies found him dangerous. His words, they thought, were a threat to their positions of power, and so they arranged to have him killed on false charges and be executed like a common criminal. But as we know, that was not the end of the story, for death could not hold him. John says this, in him was life, and that life was the light of all mankind. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome. You know, despite the wonders of electricity, despite the wonders of the flashlight in my cell phone, sometimes in our world today it feels dark. Sometimes the world feels dark. We live in a country with deep divisions. We live in a country where the death rate by suicide and the death rate by drugs are both going up. We live in a world where depression plagues millions of people, despite our economic prosperity. We know there are people in our culture who feel like they have nothing to live for, no reason to live, no purpose in their life. In the midst of darkness, even when we feel like we are stumbling around in the dark, there is light. That light came into the world in Bethlehem. That light was born on the night we celebrate tonight. That light was born into the line of David. That light, that man who said, I am the light of the world. That man said to the people who were walking in darkness, the people who were under the thumb of an empire, the people who were living in poverty and didn't know where their next meal was coming from, that man said to them in Matthew 11, come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I'll give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I'm gentle and humble in heart, and you'll find rest for your souls. This man, this child, who grew to be this traveling preacher, this healer, this wonder worker, this man who conquered death itself, he said in John 8, I am the light of the world, and whoever follows me will never walk in darkness, but will have the light of life. I don't know where you are tonight. It's a wonderful night. It's a night of celebration. It's the eve of a holiday. I know there are days that we feel the darkness. There may be days that you feel like you're not sure where to take the next step, like you're not sure what you're here for. There is light for your path. There is a light in Christ that guides our footsteps. There is a light in Christ that comes. Jesus' name means Savior, salvation. And that's what he came to do. To save us from sin, to save us from death, to save us from our own worst impulses. And he offers to come and live in each of our hearts. If we will only invite him. Let's pray together.